I felt like I was broken and something was wrong with me. And if I could just be different, then I would be lovable and likable. And, I got bullied in school. I think all of that internalized made me very uncomfortable in my own skin.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Flip That Shit. My name is Stacey Uhrig and my guest today is Jaclyn Beckerman. So I'm so excited to introduce you to Jaclyn. We're going to have some very fun things for you guys to actually see on this podcast. So for those of you who are watching it on YouTube, great. For those of you who are catching it on the podcast, some of the visual stuff that we're going to talk about towards the end, you'll just have to envision, or you'll have to go to Jaclyn's website. Let me introduce you a little bit to Jaclyn. I'm going to give you a little bit about her backstory and what she does now, and we're going to get right into it. So, fresh off the trauma train, Jaclyn found herself reeling from the discovery of her suddenly estranged husband's secret life. She was a newly single mom with a newborn and a toddler living in South Africa, very, very far from her support system. She was shocked. She was traumatized, very lost, and her best choice was to return home, where emotional absenceness and dismissiveness had been the norm from the first place. Despite her circumstances, she realized early on that a lack of self-love had led her to where she was, which is going to be a lot about what we talk about today. She was determined to heal and learn how to love herself. So she set out on a journey to ensure she would never find herself in that situation again. Fast forward nearly 5 years, she's genuinely happier. And after immense healing and transformation, she's learned to love herself, know her worth, trust her instincts, and understand that she is the most qualified expert in navigating her life's path. She has decades of experience as a trained life coach. However, she's amazing because she channeled that knowledge and experience into a newfound passion and purpose, which is silversmithing. She designs and crafts inspirational jewelry and encourages mindfulness and intentional reflection throughout the day through the jewelry, helping people make mindset shifts to access the happiness that they seek. So excited to have you on today. So I'm just going to get right into it. Are you willing to share with us what happened when you had this newborn baby and this toddler in South Africa, halfway across the world?
Oh, I mean, he was very, had mental health issues that were never addressed, that he didn't even recognize that that's what that was, never got help for. And it really kamikazed our entire lives. The life he was living outside of our home was one I could sell to Netflix. It was insane. And not a single one of our friends or family had any idea any of it was going on. So everyone was kind of devastated and shocked. And it was, and I mean, I think he was too. I really think that he kind of was very broken and needed a lot of help that he wasn't getting. And it is not right that ended up being, his wife and children's to our detriment. But I mean, I can look back now. At the time, it was extremely, extremely traumatizing. I was in a very dark place, but I can look back now and almost have some gratitude for that it went how it went, because I wasn't per se happy, and I was fine. As I think most people tend to be in their marriages or in their relationships, where they think well, this is just what it is, and it's just going to be like this, and I have to accept it. And that wouldn't have been enough to make me leave. And I think had I not left, I would never be where I am today, and I would never be as happy as I am, and I would never have learned how to love myself. So I can have gratitude for that part of it.
Amazing. So you come back, and the best place for you to live. So now you've left South Africa. You're from the States initially, right? Yeah. You leave South Africa, where you've been living married with your husband. How you were there 7 years? Yeah. So you have an entire life built there. You have a toddler and a newborn, and you're going back to where it really all started.
Yeah.
Right? In your own childhood home. So can we talk a little bit about that? How was that decision for you? And what did you know you were walking back into?
I mean, it was challenging in a sense of knowing what I was walking back into, I did. My mom and I particularly have a really tough time living together and really butt heads. I think that I've done so much work on myself and so much coaching and therapy and all these things that I can take responsibility for things and see my part in it. But it's super hard for me to have someone else who can't at all and isn't willing to. And then like when they are doing things that I consider to be completely inappropriate, like screaming at small children when they make mistakes or little things that I'm like, that's not okay. And, or, you know, saying things, not meaning them the way, but like, I was afraid for my children to take on the stuff I took on, thinking that they weren't as fair as they were, or that they were bad, or that there was something wrong with them. Because those are the kind of like self-talk that's stuck in my, like, you know, inner voice for so much of my life. So
let's back this up a bit. So if you could describe your childhood in 3 words, what 3 words would you use to describe it?
Lonely, dismissed, but there was also a sense of like there's a lot of things like that. And then there is this sense of like, I knew things were okay. You know, like I had a safe home. I wasn't getting beaten. You know what I mean? Like I was also very advantaged, or whatever you say, lucky in a lot of ways. And I could kind of see that too. And it was I think that's hard as a kid, that juxtaposition of like, it's not so bad with my feelings don't matter at all. And no one pays any attention to me half the time. Is really confusing for a child, because you feel like you see that it can be worse, but you also feel like you don't matter and that you're not good enough and that something's wrong with you all the time. I feel like I was constantly, and as like, I have ADHD. So as a neurodivergent kid in the 90s, like I was born in 84, I felt like I was broken and something was wrong with me. And if I could just be different, then I would be lovable and likable. And, you know, I got bullied in school. I think all of that internalized made me very uncomfortable in my own skin. And I got bullied in school, and I had a really hard time in my I wouldn't go back.
So everything you're describing, I'm so glad that we're all getting it out on the table, because in my mind as a trauma coach, when I say trauma, I see a pie chart. And in that pie chart, I see 75% of the trauma cases that I work with as being exactly what you just described, which I would designate as like little t trauma. And I see the other 25% as something that anybody from the outside could look into and know it's incredibly traumatic.
Yeah, like the end of my marriage.
Right. Or something that just, you know, massive betrayal or acts of aggression, abuse, violence. Like, we know those things to be super traumatic. What you just described is why I do what I do.
Yeah.
It is those kinds of experiences that are the ones that are leaving us most stuck. So
I want to say, like, I think with my ex, it was the massive betrayal, and it was going on for years, and I had no idea. But the thing is, like, the fact that I couldn't see the stuff before that is the part that I think is really important to highlight, that like I didn't see any red flags. And I think that is so rooted in the little t trauma of my childhood, of my feelings always being invalidated, where I had this person who seemed like he did validate my feelings, who seemed like he did care about them and see me. But really, I think it was more placating and like there was never change. So if there was something that he was doing that was hurtful to me, he'd promise change and then never take action, which I only learned later from therapy is gaslighting. But like, I didn't see that. And it's because of all that stuff. And like, we're so affected by that stuff in our childhood that we become blind to all the red flags, because we think like this person is different and they're so much better and they hear me, but really they're not hearing you at all. They're just saying what's right so that they, you know, can move on.
So it's interesting, you know, trauma is never about an event. It's never about an event. Trauma is having had an experience that causes you to change the lens through which you see yourself, others, and the world around you. and how that gets so rooted and permanent that it challenges your life. So you said, I felt like I was broken. I felt like I didn't belong. I felt all these different things. That's the lens through which you saw yourself. And then the world that you were living in was filtered through that lens. So maybe what you felt you were getting in South Africa was more than what you had before. So that in and of itself just felt like more than and enough. But now you're on the other side and realize, oh my God, that was like nothing. And I now know what enough is. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's crazy because I think that there's so many big insights I had after that. Like one of which being, we tend to choose, and I did certainly, but I think a lot of people, we tend to choose people like the people who traumatized us in the hopes that we can make them be different to make it right so that we think we're good enough.
I don't know that it's even to make it that we're different. It's what we know. It's familiar. And our mind, there's a handful of rules of the mind. And one of the rules of the mind is we will always yield to what's familiar and run from what's unfamiliar. So it's the feeling that you would have embodied in your system being around someone similar that is the familiar. And subconsciously, we know how to control that. We know how to navigate that. We know how to predict that. So that feels like safety, but it's really not productive or functional.
Yeah. Well, that's fair too.
Right?
Yeah. I think that something that's interesting to me is that the what you called the little T traumas and the childhood stuff is stuff you live with unknowingly for so long.
Right.
Whereas what happened in the end with my ex that was like a big T trauma to me was changed me for the better. And I think I find it really interesting. It seems like a lot of people who've gone through these massive transformations in their lives, like big famous people even, right? Like Garvey and Oprah and all these people who had really rough childhoods, but something got worse before it got better. It was like, it had to get so bad that they had to be like, this is bullshit. And they all recognized it was about mentality. And they all decided, like, it was a decision to be like, I'm going to love myself and I'm going to have a great life. And then they did. Like, that's crazy. It's like,
but don't you see that as like the breakthrough, like the breakdown before the breakthrough?
Yeah. Well, you can't have any breakthroughs without breakdowns because you can't see, you need the things that are comfortable to kind of whittle away before you even consider something different, I think.
So I just want to help. This is always just for the benefit of the listener. So I want to kind of create a picture of here you are. And remember, the trauma is never the event, right? The trauma is how it's experienced and the interpretation we're making that is not working well in our life. So here you are in South Africa. You've had this catastrophic realization that you can't unsee about your life, about your marriage, your family, all of this. You have to now move across the world with a toddler and an infant and pack up your entire life and move back. Were you present for any of that? Meaning, like, I know you, like, were you just in a fog?
I was present. I think that I was uncomfortably present, but I was in therapy at the time. And I was, from this time, I found out I was in therapy basically almost immediately. And I think I am not someone who holds it in, like, I'm not good at that. But which I think is a good thing in the sense that, like, I had those people I could talk to and I would say all the things I was feeling and I didn't feel like I wasn't holding it back. And I think it was so immensely important that I did that because processing it allowed me to move through it. And as much as it felt incredible, I did feel incredibly broken. I was very aware of this process at each point. And I think when I chose to leave, it was really a choice to love myself more than the idea of this other person loving me.
You were just talking about when you found out that your ex was living a double life. and you were shocked and bewildered and betrayed and confused. The first thing you did was started working with a therapist. And when you were saying that, my thought was, this is going to be great because we're going to be able to give our listeners a roadmap to what are some best practices when your life is falling apart. Right? When your life is falling apart as you know it, for you, step one was get support from a professional. And I think that that's so smart. We tend to go right to family, right to friends, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think sharing our challenge is so smart because shame cannot grow when it's being shared. However, working with a professional who understands how to help somebody navigate through a traumatic experience is great. So what I loved what you said before we got interrupted was when you decided to leave after having had that therapeutic support, you were able to make the decision based on self-love, love for yourself, not for any other reason.
Mm-hmm. And then I think there was that and respecting myself, like recognizing that I have value inherently and I don't need to be in this relationship. I don't need this certain formula in order to prove it. I think I was terrified to some extent, and to be a single mom with a newborn and a 2-year-old at the time, 2.5-year-old was terrifying. But at the same time, it was so bad. There was no other option. Like there was no way I could stay and feel good about myself, respect myself, like ever be happy. And I deserve to be happy. You know, like I don't deserve to stay in a situation that I'm going to forever feel like I am undervaluing myself.
Do you think you needed this catastrophic thing to happen in order for you to start to gain that realization?
Absolutely. 100%. I don't know. You know, I mean, I tried to work on that for years already. I trained as a life coach when I was 24, which was 2008. And so a lot of this stuff is stuff I knew, but there's such a difference between knowing and having the information and understanding and internalizing and embodying. There's such a big difference. And it's such a difficult thing to do when we have that trauma in our childhood, I think, where it's like our inner voice is so heavily built on what's wrong with us. And it's so difficult to love yourself when you can't help but see what's wrong with you all the time.
Incredibly profound. And this is exactly why I do this podcast, because of exactly what you just said. Like, we do walk around, again, I've said this earlier today, with this filter, this lens of not enoughness. And then we tend to also attract more of it into our life. It's almost like we can't vibrate at a level higher than what we're putting out into the universe.
You can't. And you can't vibrate at a level higher than you think you deserve or that you're capable of. If you don't think you're worthy or you don't think you're good enough, I mean, how is anyone else supposed to, really? Because you are internally saying, I'm not. And I want you to think differently. But I always tell people, like, when people are looking for a relationship, for example, and this is now my view on it, where they really want that other person. They want someone to complete them. They want someone to spend their lives with. They're like really dead set on like, I want to be in this. And my thing is like, do you love yourself? And if you can't say yes to that, you need to not worry about a relationship right now, because you can't give something you don't have. If you don't have love for yourself, you can't give it to someone else. You can't like dip from an empty well.
So you take all of that knowledge, all that realization. It's like you had it beforehand, but now it was in real practice, and I'm sure it sucked.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm sure it sucked. And you come back here with a newborn and a toddler into the environment that originally fostered a lot of this self-doubt and this view of yourself from the get, right? Because let's just face it, sometimes, and I think this is the reality of why this is such a great story for people to listen to. You knew, okay, I'm going to have to make a sacrifice here. I know this probably isn't the best case scenario, but this is my best case scenario unless I want to be homeless on the street with my kids, at least to start.
Mhm.
Correct?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, I think that things didn't go as I thought they were going to go. Certainly, they often don't. And I think I was in a really low place, and it's hard to get to a higher place when you're so focused on the low place as well. But so I took a few months to settle in, then took a few months to find a job because of the job market at the time was difficult to like, it was, you know, it was the opposite of what it is now. There were very few jobs and they were difficult, very competitive to get. So started a new job, and then 2-3 months in, COVID hit and they laid off like hundreds of people. And then I ended up, you know, home and quarantined for like a year in that household where I had all this trauma from, with my, you know, my children also having like their own like my eldest having her own challenges. Like we're all ADHD here, so there's a lot of emotional deregulation and things. And it was rough, but again, that kind of continued to take me to a point of like enough. Like I got to a point early 2021 where I was like, I cannot, like I'm not going to survive this, and things will not get better unless I take care of my well-being. And the choice to do that was like, I was very miserable and I was like, I need to do something. I decided to teach myself to crochet because I'd always wanted to learn. So I found YouTube tutorials, and for like a month or two, I was really super into it and I was really good at it right away. And I'd never really made something with my hands like that. And that was like, seeing the end result was amazing. But it's a very long process to get to the end result, and I'm very impatient. So I pretty quickly moved on to jewelry, but it went through different phases. So I started in beads because I wanted those seed bead bracelets where you put like a word or your name or whatever. And I didn't want to pay $10 a bracelet for them. So I was like, I could make that. So I made them, and then I was just making them for friends for fun, but I'd put like a word on it that I knew would be supportive to them. Like something they struggled with that I could remind them like to breathe or to trust themselves or whatever. And I would just like surprise them in the mail with it. And then I started just putting pieces together, like little charms and findings and chains and jump rings and stuff. Then I discovered resin. So I got all the stuff for
and this
resin
is all
thanks to
during
a friend of
COVID.
mine. This is all, or like first half of 2021. So it's still COVID, but we're getting to like vaccines have just started. But I'm like, it was in the bracelets when I was making those seed bead bracelets, and I gifted one to a friend. One of those friends said, you should sell these. Like people sell these for $10, $15 a bracelet. They're great. Like you could totally sell them and make some money doing it. And that was the first spark of idea of selling jewelry that I would never have even thought to. And seed beads were not for me. They were very finicky. You like go to tie it, and if you mess up the tie, everything falls apart and you have to start over. And that is just my worst nightmare. So I moved on from that part quickly. But with resin ended up, I found out was very toxic and it freaked me out. But I was making really cool stuff. I had very cool ideas that weren't being done. But in that process, I'd already started to think like, maybe I could sell these, like maybe I could do this as a business. And there was like that spark of fire, that spark of passion. And everyone in my life rolled their eyes at me and was like, you're not going to get rich making jewelry, like, especially resin jewelry. And it was very much all doubt, all like, ugh, this is just doing the thing again. We're just starting a business that's just going to do it for a couple months and then going to be over it. Once I was freaked out enough about the toxicity of resin, I was like, okay, I can't do resin. I've got to find a different way. I really wanted to learn silversmithing, but I didn't want to do it by videos. I felt like it was something I needed to learn hands-on. I was a little intimidated by doing that without like in-person instruction. And then I, manifested a person that I met at a story time from a library story time, another mom, and our kids were playing, and we were chatting about this stuff. And she mentioned to me she did art class, like some kind of screen printing art class at the Visual Arts Center of New Jersey in Summit. And she was like, I think they have jewelry classes. You should look. Looked it up. Sure enough, they had silversmithing classes. So I signed up within like the week. And the next month, which was actually, today's the 13th, right? So it was exactly 2 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
Today.
And I'm going to stop you for 1 second because there's so many pieces here that I think are important for people to hear. What you naturally did is what we call in the industry resourcing, right? So you were in a funk, you were feeling low, your window of tolerance was probably very, very short. It's like teeny tiny. And for people that don't know, window of tolerance is like your bandwidth for shit. Okay. It's your tolerance for shit. And so when you're freaking out and reactive and triggered all the time, it's probably because your window of tolerance is like a sliver. So what you were doing naturally, and I want people to hear this, is you were partaking in activities to help you widen that window of tolerance. You found yourself crocheting. It was grounding. There was probably something about that was repetitive and helped you regulate your nervous system a little bit. And then you saw an end result that brought you a lot of joy. So now your window of tolerance is opening up a little bit. And now you're getting creative and excited and motivated. And you're moving on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. I have a necklace here, not from you, but I'm going to get one from you. And right here it says, ask, believe, receive. And I bring that up because when you talk about manifesting, I don't want to glide over that. I want to speak to it for a second because for people who don't understand the power of manifestation, this is such a great example. We all want things in life, but when we believe it's not available to us, we can never generate it. You can have the resources for it, but you cannot generate it. So you had an intention. The intention was, I want to learn silversmithing. You literally spoke it into existence casually by having that conversation with someone. You believed that you were available for it. And because those two things were in alignment, you received what you needed. Here's a piece of information. Hey, there's this thing in Summit. You look it up. Holy shit. Not only do they do jewelry making, but they're silversmithing. That's not a coincidence, guys. That class was always there. It didn't just pop up because Jaclyn made a declaration that she wanted to silversmith. The class was always there, but she spoke into existence what it is that she wanted, and she met with it. Okay. All the things that we want in life are already there. They already exist, but you must tell the universe, God, the source, whatever, that you're ready for it, that you want it. And more importantly, you need to believe that you are worthy enough of receiving it. And when you can do that, there's literally nothing you can't do. It's how I got into this profession. It's how you started building your profession because we were purposeful and intentional about what we wanted. And we knew the power of this. People call it the secret, right? Or the law of attraction. So here you are. You're like, oh my God, there's a silversmithing class within a half hour of my home. Tell me about that experience. Did you fall in love with it as soon as you started?
Literally day one. And like the day when I didn't even touch a saw or anything. Like all we did was learn about design. And I've never felt about any other career I've even tried to contemplate than I have this. And I've never felt about it this consistently. Like I'm 2 years in and I love it just as much. And for me, that's a big deal because I usually get bored of stuff within a few months. Like I'll be really into it in the beginning because I like learning new things. But once I understand the things behind it, I'm like over it. Or, and it's not the challenge. It's that I like the challenge, but I get bored really easily. And this has never, ever, like my interest has never waned in any way. It's only grown and it's only expanded as to what I want to create. Very early on, and I'm a very big, manifesty person. Like I'm a big believer. The things I have manifested in the past couple of years are insane, including like winning multiple contests. Like I could explain it later if you want.
Explain it.
Like, so I listen to Z100 a lot just because it's what I have it on the radio as I'm driving. So whenever there's a contest, I'll call in, but I did that as a kid too. It was always my channel. And I never won, not once. I won 3 times in the past
Holy
year.
shit.
I won a Sheeran ticket. I won a night away in the Poconos, in the Catskills, at with everything included in a water park and stuff. And I won $1,000.
Okay, so here's the difference. Who can guess the difference? The difference is that Jaclyn, as a child who was listening to Z100 and calling in, didn't believe she was fucking worthy of it.
Yeah. 100%. And now I literally, so the most interesting ones. So the one where I won $1,000, it was the first one. This contest started at the beginning of the summer, and I was like, I'm going to win that. And I was like, I was like, I know it. Like, I'm going to win it. And it's the knowing too. It's the certainty. And that's the hardest part, is that we have a really hard time not doubt, like adding in doubt. Like maybe, or it's like, I might. Well, it's just, I knew. And it was this, I didn't even realize it was the second to last day, or the last day of the contest, that I happened to hear the keyword thing on the radio, and I put it in the thing and then forgot about it. And an hour later, someone called me and was like, you won. And the other one was the night in the Catskills. It's at the Cartwright. And I literally was calling, and I'll get through multiple times, but I won't always, it's only those 3 times where I've gotten through and actually been the caller. And it wasn't when I got through yet, but before I did, but that was like, I deserve this. Like, I'm worthy of this as I'm calling. And that's the one I won.
So if anything from this entire podcast is clear, it is that when you do not believe you were worthy of it, you will receive exactly what you think you deserve.
Exactly, which is nothing. Or maybe whatever. It could be the bad
of the same shit that you have accepted as, I guess this is just my destiny. How many times have we heard people say that? Well, I guess it's just my destiny, or I guess I'm just designed for this, or, I guess life is just going to be hard for me. It's going to be easy for everybody else, but it's always just been hard. Well, part of the reason why is because you are believing that is all you are worth. And literally, this is quantum physics. You are now vibrationally, from an energy level, vibrating so low. Your frequency is so low. The only shit that can meet you is the low shit.
Yeah. Like, I love quantum physics. I always explain it in the most for dummies, basic way, where I'm like, literally anything you see is matter. No 100%. One can deny this, right? And anything that's matter has mass, and anything that's mass is made of atoms, and an atom has a proton and a neutron, and they interact and they make an electrical charge. What's an electrical charge? Energy. Every single cell of your body is energy. Every single cell of the light, of the phone, of the couch that you're sitting on, whatever it is made of the same exact thing. And scientifically, not me and my woo-woo law of attraction-y, whatever, scientifically, energy vibrates. Those are the most basic terms of it. And it makes it so mind-blowingly easy to actually understand, this is all the same stuff, but I can't see the stuff that I'm vibrating slower than, because to see things, energy has to slow its vibration down. That is what makes the result in it
when you cause the change in yourself and your thoughts change, your vibration will change. I will be the first to say, anyone that goes around saying, change your thoughts, change your life, I do call bullshit on, and this is why. It doesn't start with your thought. It starts with your core belief. It starts with what it is that you believe about yourself and what it is that you believe you're worthy for in this world, because that's what causes your thoughts. The thought is, that's going to happen for me. You could have been easily, Jaclyn, someone on the phone that's like, why am I even on this phone? They're going to pick up. They're going to tell me I wasn't the winner. I never win. Somebody else always wins. Well, guess what? You're not going to fucking win. And it's not an attitude thing. It's not about attitude. It is, you are now throwing out to the universe exactly what you want. And that energy is so low, that's where you're going to be met. So, full circle, you learn this silversmithing. You're now authentically aligned. You are in your flow. It is so clear. Tell us a little bit about this jewelry line. I know you're wearing a bunch of it today, and I'm wondering if you can talk about the larger circle on your chain there, the bigger pendant.
Yeah.
What is that?
Ironically, I kind of want to tell you about one that I'm not wearing because it's exactly what you're saying. I'll tell you about that also. But there's one, if you see in my most recent post, there's a couple posts about it, but it spins. So it's 2 circles and there's a bar down the middle and it spins and they spin independently of each other. So it sits flat, but you can spin it either way. And I call it what goes around comes around, or the karma necklace. And it's so aligned with what you were saying that I was like, oh, it's literally that. It's that who you're being about stuff, where you're coming from, what your beliefs are, determines what your external circumstances align with. And we're not taught that. We are taught the opposite. We're taught shit happens and you just have to manage yourself around it and deal. And it's not what's happening. You are the source. So you are represented by the inner circle, everything else, the outer circle. And that's the reminder. It's that your beliefs are creating what is, whether positive or negative in your view, it is creating the alignment of the outer circle of everything else. And I was like, it's so exactly what you're saying.
I'm pretty sure I need to invest in that piece. That's awesome.
It's amazing. It's a very popular one, but it's also very fun to fidget with, but it's such a good reminder, like either direction, you can go either way. Every scenario. So actually this one also, so this is the sun drop. Let me see if I can get a little.
Okay.
So it is
I see it.
The sun drop and the stormy drop. And the idea with this one kind of plays into that. So it's that you're always adding to the sunshine or storming your life based on what you're looking for. And ultimately, we're always looking for one of 2 things, what's going well or what's going wrong. But you can't have life go well when you're looking for what's wrong with it all the time, because you can't have what you can't see and you can't see what you're not looking for. So literally the idea behind it is that when you catch yourself criticizing, judging, complaining, whether it's of others, whether it's of a situation, whether it's of yourself, because we all do that you pause and touch it and ask yourself, what am I looking for right now in this scenario? Am I looking for what's working, what's going well, what I appreciate, what I'm grateful for, what the opportunity is? Or am I looking for what's missing, frustrating, taking too long, not good enough? Because I'm going to get more of whichever I'm looking for, period, always, infallibly.
I love it. And as I'm watching you wear these pieces, and I want you to go over some of the pieces that you're wearing, the other necklace and the earrings. When the process, this is what I'm thinking about. Are you starting with a piece of silver that then you're melting down into liquid, and then you have molds that you've created? What are you doing here?
So there's videos of me working on my Instagram. I do a lot of reels, but I hand fabricate most stuff. So I do a lot of one-of-a-kinds and customs as well, which I love. That's really fun for me. Ultimately, my goal is to manufacture all of my regular collections so that I can do wholesale to retail and kind of get them out there further. Because I'm one person and production is not my bliss. Designing and creating the initial ones is. But I take sheet metal and wire mostly and hand fabricate from those. Sometimes certain pieces I'll make hand fabricate one entirely. I'll saw it, I'll cut it out, I'll file it, I'll solder it, I'll polish it. And then I will have a mold. I'll make a mold and cast more. So you can duplicate it that way. Certain ones that are very intricate, I would have to charge a lot more if I was doing every single one by hand, and it would take so long. So I do that for both of those reasons. But most of the pieces I just hand fabricate. Like that one I showed you, the what goes around comes around. But the vessel, which is the other one I'm going to tell you about, the manifestation vessel, I do cast.
So what does that mean that you do cast? What does that mean?
So that's where I said you make a mold, and then you basically make copies of it using investment, and then it gets put on something called a sprue tree, and then molten level gets poured into that, and that'll break off. It's in like this whole little system, and then it creates replicas. But then you get a raw casting at the end, so you still have to. There's still a lot of work to do on it, but it cuts out a lot of the at least hand fabrication. So a lot of pretty much all the pieces you'll see in stores will likely be cast. So sometimes I make all of my prototypes, my initials by hand, but sometimes they'll do it by CAD design, by computer assisted design. and make a 3D model, and then they'll make a mold of that. So there's a lot of different ways to do it.
So tell us about this one, this manifestation.
The manifestation vessel. So that is this piece. And if you can see, I'm going to try to get some light. Yep. Okay, that looks good. And so you see all those little lines on it. So all of the collection, there are earrings, ring, bracelets, necklace. Of this collection, most of them have a single circle. This one is a double. I'll explain why in a minute. So the idea behind it is that you can only create the life you want when you make space for it. So you have to push aside all of the noise, the doubts, the insecurities, the fears, people's opinions, and live in the space where you trust your own intuition and understand that your value is inherent. It is built in. You don't need to prove it. You don't need someone else's approval to make it true. Like we don't look at babies that way, right? A baby is born and we're like, oh my God, they're amazing. This is a miracle and it's magical and this is crazy. And we don't think they need to do something to be good enough. And we are those same babies. We are. We just very quickly the world puts a lot of expectation onto us. Even as a baby, are they crawling yet? Are they eating yet? Are they sleeping through the night? Like it's a very small amount of time that we're allowed to just be without any expectation. And ultimately, we're all those same little babies. We have value. It is built in, and that's enough. And then only take the last piece is a reminder to only take actions that align with the experience of life you want for yourself. So they all mean that, but what's special about this vessel is that you can take a small strip of paper and you write on it what you want to manifest. And I always say, like, not the stuff. The stuff is great. There's nothing wrong with wanting stuff, but it's why you want the stuff that you wanted in the first place. That's the life you want. So I want my business to be successful. I want a home that I love, that it's a safe space. I want like someone to clean that home because I don't want to do it. And that's not like that, right? There's great stuff I want. And I think that's the magic of being in this world we live in, as we get to create those things. But I don't want them for the stuff. I want them because it'll bring joy. I want it because it'll bring because there's abundance in it. I want it because there's peace in knowing that I have all of my needs met. And so what I write on mine is usually joy, peace, and abundance. Everyone's can be what matters to you. But then what you do is you roll it up and you put it inside. So it fits in and it kind of like expands. So it won't fall out. I mean, mostly it's here anyway, and it's upright. And then you carry it around like this little compass or measuring point, touch point that you can use against things. So is this person's opinion? Is this opportunity, this relationship, this job, this friendship? Is this aligned with or contributing to what I said I want for myself, that I wrote, that I'm wearing? Because if it's not, it prevents me from having it. I cannot choose things in opposition to this and have them transmute into it. And sometimes it's just our perspective, right? Is my perspective on this thing leading me to this or not? Because certain things we won't change, right? We know we're not going to, like a relationship with a parent, for example. We might not want to cut that parent off. We might want that relationship, but then we have to work on our perspective around how we see that relationship and that person for us to still be able to have this. And ultimately, it teaches you how to listen to your feelings around something. And I think we are so conditioned not to. Our whole lives, we are taught like, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. You shouldn't feel that way. And all of us are so dissociated from our own emotions. And it's crazy because our emotions are basically our magical interpreters of our intuition. And our intuition is like the higher self and the universe and connection to all of it. And we can't access it and we can't figure out, and we're always in doubt because we don't trust our feelings.
Tell us a little bit about the box breathing earrings.
So that's these ones here. And the idea with these is when you are in overwhelm or anxious or like about to lose your shit, which we all are sometimes, it reminds you to pause and take 3 to 5 box breathing breaths. If you haven't heard of this technique, it's basically breathing your nose for 4 seconds to the count of 4, hold it for the count of 4, breathe out your mouth to the count of 4, and hold it for the count of 4. So you can trace it with your finger as you do it. You can literally trace around counting to 4 as you do it. And it just kind of, I like the earrings, one, because I like how they look, but also because they're dangly and it's like it interrupts. I love the dangle earrings when they interrupt like your awareness. And it's just such a good reminder. I remember when I first ever tried breathing, like take deep breaths just in general. And I was just be like, I'm like furious at my children. And I'm like trying not to yell. And the irony is like, I totally used to be a yeller and I knew it was not okay. And I knew that it was my conditioning because I was yelled at and I would try really hard and then I'd feel really bad about it. And I learned, and people think it's this like, I'm not this stuck up, like, oh, I know it better. It took me so much work and it was such a slow process. And it was just little by little and practice by practice, I got better at it. And now I can do box breathing. And now I have another one that's for bubble breaths, but it's only the necklace at the moment. But like bubble breaths is you breathe in your nose all the way and you breathe out as if you're breathing through a bubble wand. So I have a necklace that's a bubble wand and bubbles. And one, it's same, like the idea of use is the same as the box breathing, but the meaning is also a reminder to look at life the way kids look at bubbles, with awe and wonder, because we get so caught up in the shit of adulthood that we forget that there's fucking magic around us. Like this is literally this magical universe that we created together as like a unit that we then see each other separately so that we can have a fucking experience of it.
This is like it's everything. So I know you're in New Jersey. Locally, if people want to get their hands on and see and experience your designs and your jewelry firsthand, knowing this is probably going to go live, say in like August or September, where can people find you throughout the year locally? And then we'll talk about how people can find you online.
So I do a lot of craft shows. At the moment, there's a store that I'm in Ridgewood, 1111 Healing. It's a wellness center and they have kind of a retail front. I haven't been pushing the retail stuff at the moment because my intention is very much to manufacture for that. Again, don't love production, and getting enough together to put into a store is a lot and I don't enjoy it. And then it kind of like, it's like a vampire sucking away my joy. So I'm trying to very much stay aligned with, I know the best route for me is this, and then kind of waiting for what feels right to lead me there. Like I'm waiting for that inspiration and nudge to take me like, oh, this, I've had things come up. I've had people who manufacture come into my life and talk to me about working with me, but it didn't feel quite right. And I have very much practice, and it's always still a continual practice, learning that to listen to that, like, if I have any doubts about it, it's not it. Like anytime it's the right thing, it's a fuck yes. Exactly. Anything else is a fuck no.
So where are, like in the summer and in the fall, what kind of craft shows can people find you in? Sorry.
So I'm in Bergen County a lot. If on my website, there is a section that says events or calendar or something like that. And it has my Google Calendar links and my events are always up to date on it. Okay, and what's your website? So anytime I have an event, you can find it there.
Your website.
What is my website? So my website is Jaclyn, Jaclyn, Nicole, Nicole, design, DESIGN.com. And then all of my socials are the same, just without the .com. It's Jaclyn Nicole Design. But that is the best place to find out where I'll be. I'm in Bergen County a lot. I'm in New York a couple of times. I'm in New Paltz at the very beginning of September and in Rhinebeck at the very end of October. And then mostly, let's see, I'm in Peter Valley School of Craft. It's a nationally recognized nonprofit that educates the public on fine art and craft. I won their emerging artists exhibitor spot last year, and this year I'm just going as a regular exhibitor, which is pretty fucking cool. That was like 1 year in that I got that. I just exhibited in Haddonfield, which is also a fine art and craft show. So I do a lot of juried shows, which always like I'm really proud of because I've been doing it for a really short time. And I have a lot of silversmiths even who've been doing it for 30 years be impressed by my work, which I think is like, it's just really, it's not that I need the validation of it, but it's so rewarding to be like, I found my thing and I know it's my thing. And early on, like everyone doubted me until even when I first started selling and people were buying, I still had a lot of doubters. It's only the further I went that they were like, oh, and like I've gotten better and better. But I knew, and had I not been through what I'd been through, I don't think I would have learned how to listen to that inner knowing where I was like, this is right. Like, this is it. And this is like, I love it and I'm happy about it. And I have a passion for it. I have a talent for it. I couldn't have possibly known or imagined. Like, I could never have imagined doing this. I thought I wasn't even artistic. My whole life, I thought I wasn't artistic. I loved everything artsy. I loved everything like in the arts. And I would try different things, but the reactions I got was like, that's nice. You're going to be really good at sales one day.
You're amazing. Okay. So let me just let people know again, if people want to check you out, it's Jaclyn Nicole Design, Jaclyn Nicole Design. That is your website. That's your Instagram. It's your TikTok. It's your YouTube. It's all the things. And you did have a special offer here. So this is what Nicole says. Sign up to be on her email list and use the code FLIP-THAT. And when you do that, you can score a one-time 20% discount off pieces from Written in the Stars, the Manifestation Collection, Winding Road Collection, and the Sundrop Collection. Alternatively, you can grab 15% off your first order, including all pieces, just by signing up for her mailing list.
Yeah, I thought I'd give you like a little extra special discount.
I love it. So maybe the next time we talk, I'll have a piece around my neck. Thank you so much. What a great interview, despite all of our little technical challenges.
I know. I'm so sorry. That was all my stuff.
It is. Like, what are you going to do? But I love all of it. I love the story. I love the fact that you quickly identified how important it is to love yourself in this process. And half the reason why you ended up there was because that was the missing piece. And look where you are, right? Full belief in yourself, full belief in your talents. And literally the sky's the limit with you.
Yeah, I plan to build my brand into a multi-million-dollar brand. That's the goal now. I want to because I know how much it helps people too, and how my clients genuinely come back to me and say it really helps me center or helps me ground or helps me focus or makes me happy, brings me back to my happiness. And it is the most rewarding feeling to have, especially my clients who keep coming back to me and buying gifts and things because they know I want my mom. I feel like this person really could use this in their life and I can help direct them to what would most help. It is so amazing to be able to spread the coaching that I love through a medium I love. It's so satisfying.
Perfect spot to end it. Thank you so much. If you guys liked this podcast episode, you can catch all the podcast episodes of Flip That Shit. You can find it on Spotify. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, wherever you grab your casts. And do me a favor, subscribe. If you're listening to it and you like it, subscribe. The more subscribers, the better. Even leave a comment, leave a review. We'd love to read all of them. Thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciated having you.
Having me.
You're welcome.
It was so fun.
Take care.